Let's be real. Your company's data, it's probably its most valuable treasure. But here's the catch. In the cloud, it's also super vulnerable. So how do you protect it? Well, you build a fortress. And in this explainer, we're going to walk you through the blueprint for building an absolutely impenetrable data fortress using cloud data governance.
So here's the core of it, right? Data without governance equals risk. It's that simple. In the cloud, when data is unmanaged, it's not just messy. It's basically a ticking time bomb, a direct threat to your business.
So you've really got two paths you can go down. On the one hand, you've got ungoverned data, which just leads to chaos. We're talking data breaches, massive fines, and zero trust. But on the other side, with a secure system, you get trusted intelligence. You get security, powerful insights, and real business value. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher, really.
Okay, so how do we actually get to that good side, the trusted intelligence? Well, we need a plan. And that's where our Governance Fortress Blueprint comes in. This is the master plan for keeping your data safe.
Okay, so think of this as the four cornerstones of our fortress. First, we've got access control. These are the guards at the gate, deciding who gets in. Then there's data lineage. That's the map of every single road and tunnel inside. We also have security and encryption. That's the unbreakable vault. And finally, compliance. Those are the laws of the land. These four pillars are the foundation of everything we're about to build.
All right, first things first. Who actually gets inside the walls? This is all about mastering identity and access management, or to put it another way, deciding who gets the keys to the kingdom.
You're going to hear these two acronyms a lot, IAM and RBAC, but don't let them scare you off. Think of them simply as the gatekeepers. IAM, Identity and Access Management, is all about confirming who you are. And RBAC, Role-Based Access Control, decides what you're allowed to do once you're inside. They work together to make sure the right people get access to the right data.
And look, this isn't some niche, abstract idea. Every single major cloud provider has tools for this. AWS has IAM and Lake Formation, Azure uses Active Directory with RBAC, and GCP has its own IAM with something called service accounts. The names might be a little different, but the goal is exactly the same. Guard those gates.
So how do you hand out these keys without, giving away the entire kingdom? You follow the golden rule, what we call the principle of least privilege. It's simple. Give people the exact access they need to do their job, and not one single permission more. That means separating those powerful admin roles from your everyday analyst roles, and always use groups to manage permissions, not one-off individuals. It's just cleaner, safer, and way easier to manage.
Okay, so our gates are secure, the guards are at their posts. Now what? Well, now we need a map of the entire kingdom. So let's talk about the power of data lineage.
So what you're seeing here is a pretty standard journey for data. It gets ingested, landing in a raw bronze layer. Then it gets transformed and refined into these clean gold tables, and eventually it ends up visualized in a BI dashboard. What data lineage does is automatically trace this whole path, basically creating a perfect, detailed map for you.
Okay, so why is this map so ridiculously important? Well, 3 big reasons. First, it makes you auditable, which is absolutely non-negotiable for compliance. Second, it's like an early warning system. It helps you spot errors in your data pipelines before they become huge problems. And third, when something breaks, and trust me, it will, this map is your best friend for debugging the issue fast. It builds so much trust in your data.
This map doesn't just show you how your data is flowing. It also shows you exactly where your most sensitive information is hiding. And that, my friends, brings us to the most secure room in our entire fortress, the vault. It's time to talk about protecting the crown jewels with data privacy and encryption.
So we've got a few different ways to armor up our data. There's masking, which hides parts of it, like the last few digits of a credit card. Tokenization replaces the sensitive data with a stand-in token. And then there's encryption. That's the ultimate protection, scrambling data with powerful algorithms like AES 256. If you're not familiar, just know it's the gold standard. It's like a digital safe where the combination is 256 characters long. Without that exact key, the data is just useless noise.
Now, the cool part is you don't have to go looking for these crown jewels by hand. The cloud platforms do it for you. So let's do a quick fire round, starting with AWS. Their service Macy automatically scans your S3 data stores to find and classify PII. Things like names, addresses, social security numbers.
All right, next up, Azure. Purview does a really similar thing. It scans your entire data landscape,
automatically finding and tagging PII, which then makes it super easy to enforce protection policies across the board.
And rounding it out, we've got GCP. Their data loss prevention API can discover, classify, and even anonymize sensitive data as it's happening in real time. The takeaway here? The heavy lifting of finding sensitive data is pretty much a solved problem in the cloud.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got strong walls, vigilant guards, a detailed map, and an unbreakable vault. But any fortress is only as strong as the laws that govern it. So let's talk about the rules for a secure kingdom, compliance, and best practices. I bet you've heard of some of these. You've got GDPR for privacy in Europe, HIPAA for healthcare data in the US, SOC 2 for cloud apps, and PCI DSS for anything related to payments. And look, these aren't just suggestions. They're strict legal requirements. The governance tools we've been talking about are what you use to prove you're compliant. If you fail to comply, the fines can be absolutely staggering. We're talking penalties in the hundreds of millions of dollars for some companies. So yeah, this stuff matters.
So, to wrap this all up, let's go over the core rules for keeping your fortress standing strong. First, classify data the moment it comes in. Second, encrypt everything at every layer. Third, make sure you're tracking your data lineage automatically. And finally, you have to operate under a zero-trust security model, which basically means never trust, always verify. You trust no one by default, inside or outside your network.
And that right there brings us full circle. Remember how we started? Data without governance is a risk. But if you build your fortress correctly, using all the pillars we talked about, you completely transform that risk. Data with governance becomes trusted intelligence. It becomes a secure, reliable, and incredibly valuable asset for your entire organization.
Look, the cloud providers give you everything you need. The stone, the mortar, the blueprints, the tools are all there. The only question left is, are you going to be the architect who builds the fortress?